All right, welcome everyone to the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, a compensatory counter racist code study by Neely Fuller. We're going to be covering area 6, people, relations, politics, pages 180 to 195. Um, but getting started, I just like to just comment on like just the huge value in this book and this section as well. And I really like and appreciated this part from 182, which states, as long as white supremacy exists, it is best for all non-white people not to make unnecessary comments about anything. It is best for them to limit all responses, statements made with as few remarks as constructively possible. It is best to listen, to practice listening, and to seek to learn that which is of constructive value. Question: what is the correct thing to say when someone laughs at a mistake that you made, or when someone says something to you with the intention of being insulting or belittling? Answer: say one of the following: nothing, that's interesting, your viewpoint is well taken, and thank you for your thoughts. I had number 3 highlighted. Your viewpoint is well taken because I thought it was hilarious that that is as a response, and it makes perfect sense. Like I often, we often, I'm sure, have seen people fall, and then like people laugh, especially when we are so-called growing up in school and whatnot. It's almost as if other people's suffering is entertainment, amusing to us, and that's because I believe we have been trained that way. But the biggest takeaway from this is the importance of to practice listening and to seek to learn that which is of constructive value. I do know, without a doubt, that if non-white people were to practice this portion of the code, we could make leaps into producing justice and developing a collective of serious problem solvers and serious thinkers. Um, yeah. Um, Anyone like to share anything from the beginning sections of Area 6 politics? Any comments, insight?
I would like to share.
Uh,
One of the things that stood out to me was the section on when someone proves something that you did or said was an error, and you say, I made an error. I love that. I absolutely love it because I think sometimes you run into those who just can't say, I made an error or I made a mistake or oops. I think this is just like something I would share with everyone that I come encounter with, because it's okay to say I made an error. And I think being able to like almost inviting that response to happen, I think is something that I'm going to make sure to do as well when I'm communicating with others. It's like, it's okay to say I made an error. You know, you don't have to be right all the time or have to do something right all the time. It's okay to say I made an error. Or if someone, like, say I say that phrase and then someone responds and keeps going, and I can just say I admitted that I made an error as my next response, and then continue with the conversation, or just, use one of those four and just say nothing, or that's interesting.
mm. Thank you so much for that comment. I agree, and also that is a good way to hold oneself so-called accountable, because I'm always hearing that you gotta hold so and so accountable, and I don't believe that the powerless group of people can hold anyone accountable, it's best that we attempt to hold oneself accountable. And that reminds me of another portion of the code from, let me find it really quick. I'll skip ahead a little. Bum, bum, bum. Actually, it'll come up later. 'Cause I have it in my notes. Um, but we'll definitely get there. The importance of admitting one's errors and attempting to correct, compensate those errors. Really important piece of the code. So thank you, Nanaya, for bringing that up. Oh yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that.
oh, please do, please do.
Um, I like the I made an error because for some reason I've been taught to, or I've been trained to always say sorry or to apologize even when I have not done anything necessarily wrong or even made an error. I might, somebody might run into me and then I go off and say sorry, but I didn't do anything wrong. So I think it's putting me in that kind of position where I'm, inferior, where I'm always below this person or other people. So I really enjoyed the suggestion of, admitting to making errors. I think it would also help me to avoid saying sorry needlessly.
Yeah, because a lot of times we say sorry with no intention of doing or changing absolutely anything, which is why white people, white supremacists, love the word sorry. They could just massacre happens, travesty happens, like we're sorry, spilling tons of oil into the environment, killing life, killing the ability to produce life and farm life. Um, oh, I mean, we're sorry, and nothing is done. So it's really important just to understand in the ways in which these words are used to maintain the system to keep things exactly the same. So, but yeah,
I would like to. Oh,
um, I found a part where I wanted to comment on from what Nanaya said, and it says for 186, what are some of the best and correct things to say when something happens that should not happen that involves white people with non-white people during the existence of white supremacy racism? Answer: say one or more of the following. One, to the extent that a white supremacist had anything to do with it, the white supremacists are to blame. Two, to the extent that white supremacists are involved, these events should be expected. Three, considering the tacky, trashy, and terroristic arrangement that non-white people and white people have agreed upon, these events should be expected. Four, if any non-white persons are unjustly harmed as a result of these events, it is correct to directly or indirectly blame the white supremacists. Five, many people have been harmed who should not have been harmed. Many people are to blame. The people who are most to blame are hiding in plain sight. The people who are most to blame are all racist white supremacists. Um, Apologies, this is not the portion I was looking for, but still great code content. Nanaya, you're gonna say something?
yeah, I was just gonna add to a statement something you had said earlier about the whole your comment to me on I made an error, and you said the whole thing about accountability. And one of the things I always think about is I believe from the earlier section of the code book, it talks about you don't need to hold anyone accountable. And one of the sections said, like, just do what you say you're going to do, arrive at the time you said you're going to arrive. And it continues. Basically, it says, like, everything you say and do, no, everything you say, do what you say, basically, if that makes sense. And I think that's just so strong because sometimes if you just say stuff willy-nilly, go back to this and say nothing. That should be your response. But if you do decide to say something, then you should hold yourself to what you're saying. So think about responses, especially when you're talking to others.
Well said. So I have a question for everyone. What is truth? I'm sure we've heard this word thrown around lots, but what exactly is truth, and how should it be? Can it be used? Um, anyone like to answer? Go for it.
I believe truth to be uh, what that which is, and what and that which is. So truth should be used in a manner that should produce justice and correctness. Oftentimes, truth is not used or truth is not revealed, which causes confusion because at least in my opinion, there seems to be a disconnect between that which is correct and that which is truth. I mean, when I say that, I mean that, for example, a lot of people are confused about what they should be eating at all times under the guise that this is healthy for them. The truth is that these things are not healthy for you, but you're eating these things because sorry, I confused myself. But truth is that which is, and that which is. Oftentimes, truth is not used to produce justice and correctness, therefore leaving people confused about what it is that they should be doing at all times.
When I think of truth, I think of um, logic. You know, like especially thank you, Kwaku, for your description. But one of the things I think about when you're describing that as well is just being logical. You know, like if you read something and we've read it like in elementary or in school in general, we read a lot of things, you know, even outside of school and jobs and companies, you read so many things that just don't make sense, that just isn't logical. And I think that is not truth. I think truth has to stem from logic, and it has to be of constructive value to produce justice.
Well said. Um, I like to read the definition of the explanation of truth from the code, and just to talk about its importance. Really, so let me close the door. I just have white children terrorizing each other outside. Alrighty, so this is from 182 of the code, which states, "Truth is that which is, that which is has not been known, that which is has not been known, understood, talked about, or used in a manner that has resulted in justice and or correctness, balance between people, creatures, things, etc." So I chalk this up to like truth being reality, like what is actually happening on planet Earth, what are the things we see happening with our eyes, the things we see hearing with our ears, and so we understand that well, the code states that the the white people of the known universe who have chosen to practice white supremacist racism are the people who know and understand truth better than and more than all of the other people in the known universe. They have used their knowledge and understanding of truth in such a manner as to promote themselves into being the most powerful people in the known universe. Through their practice of racism and white supremacy, they have used their knowledge and understanding of truth to promote falsehood, the absence of knowledge and or understanding of that which is among and between their victims, the non-white people. So let's not ever be confused in our understanding that white people understand much more than they like to admit about the system of white supremacy. They know that the system is in place. So if you ever hear a racist suspect saying, "Oh, I'm just ignorant," or "I just need to learn more," they've been trained since birth their position on planet Earth, and I've seen none who has taken the position of attempting to replace the system of justice. And I think this last section I'm going to read involving truth is probably one of the most important pieces of it, because it lets us know that white people, racist suspects, are not going to be the ones to use truth to produce justice. The record shows that, history shows that they have become addicted to abusing and misusing non-white people. They have lots of fun. It brings them lots of joys of keeping this system in place. So if non-white people are waiting on white people to fix this problem, we're going to be waiting forever and ever and ever. So now I'm going to read from the code, which states that the white supremacists are not willing to use their knowledge and understanding of truth to produce justice and correctness. In order to produce justice, it is necessary for the victims of white supremacy to know, understand, and use truth to produce justice and correctness. Therefore, it is correct for non white people to tell what they know and understand only in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. So it's our duty to use truth to promote and produce justice on planet Earth. Um, yeah, I just think for a long time, yeah, I didn't have a functional definition of truth, which is that which is, the reality we live in. I read so just ton of nonsense in college involving like reality, and how reality is just like rituals and ceremonies that people participate in, and just so many words to explain really, really simple things. Like, this system is not that complicated. The way it operates is not that complicated. But white people have fun confusing us with their tons of words, and it's time that we understand what's happening and use truth to produce justice.
I feel like some non-white people can't deal with the reality of truth because truth is a reality, and someone to live in this fairy tale world, so they're not, of course, honest with their self. So of course, definitely they can't be honest with others because they don't want to know the truth. The truth is an uncomfortable position to know that you live in a unjust world.
Mm. Yes, Miss Cruz. Thanks for sharing that. It reminds me of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and the need for all Black people, especially, to practice deep levels of Black self-respect. And the code says that that a lot of non-white people have don't have a functional definition of respect. Therefore, they don't respect themselves, nor they know how to respect themselves, which is why I grew up in an environment where people were getting murdered and killed for so-called not respecting each other. You disrespected me, now I gotta kill you and shoot you. Or you disrespecting me, now I gotta harm you and mistreat you. But this is all due to the monstrosity training we've been given by white supremacists. And the code says that respect and or self-respect, that a means that a person refuses to lie to himself or herself, and is at all times willing to inform all others that he or she refuses to lie to him herself or herself. Simply put, do not at any time ever tell yourself to believe something that you know is not true. So if you understand non-white people inability to face truth, face reality, I think it's very logical to chalk that up, not to chalk it up to, but to also understand that as having no self-respect, and not even understanding what self-respect looks like, because we haven't been trained in that. We've only been trained to be. But I'm going to read from 183. Because when I first read this part of the code um, a bit ago, I was like, wow, this really explains the planet Earth really well, especially South Central. Especially like look at any rap video, look at any Cardi, look at any hip hop video where the words bitch or nigga is used, and you will see this reality taking place. So this is from 183. And the question is, what is the correct thing to say when people criticize the general behavior of non-white people? Answer. Say during the existence of white supremacy, all non-white people are directly or indirectly taught, led, and or forced to behave in a manner of monsters and or monstrosities. The system of white supremacy is scientifically designed to produce only two types of behavior in non-white people: the behavior of monsters and monstrosities. The term monster applies to any greatly destructive behavior by non-white people who, for whatever reason, are subject to and or victims of white supremacy, and who willfully and deliberately do major unjust harm to any person. The term monstrosity behavior applies to the general behavior of a non-white person who is subject to and or is a victim of white supremacy and does not have the will and or the ability to end white supremacy racism. These terms sometimes explain that in the system of white supremacy, all non-white people are from birth systematically trained and or forced to think, speak, and act in the manner of monsters and or monstrosities. This is one of the basic requirements of racist men and racist women, white supremacists collectively. And just to even give more insight onto how this training works and how it affects us all in varying degrees, I myself um, behave like a monster and slash monstrosity. I used to in my youth I was just addicted to well I don't know if addicted is the best term. I would just really enjoy gore, violence, death, destruction. There's a movie I used to watch all the time in my teenage years called Natural Born Killers, and it's just a movie about a racist man and a racist woman killing people and having fun doing it. And there's one particular scene where there's like a prison riot and a black person gets like put in an oven and burned alive. And all of that was like fun enjoyment to me, you know? And as I have grown out of this vile programming I've received, now I'm like, wow, this is really incorrect. What all this stuff I enjoyed, all these rated R movies I thought were like master works of art, is nothing more than like tools used to keep this system going, tools used to make victims like myself totally absolutely insane, because you have to be insane to see images of people being burned alive, images of people dying, and get enjoyment from that. There was even a website I used to freaking as a youth called rotten.com, where you could just watch people die, you know, watch really violent stuff. I used to have access to these um, videos called Banned from Television, where it was just people dying in real life. I saw a bunch of British officers in Africa telling black people to kill other black people, and I was watching that stuff with enjoyment and while laughing, and it's just what was designed for me. I was born to be a monster. I was born to do these things. But I thank the creator that the code is on planet Earth, and thank the creator for Dr. Francis Wells for allowing me to come out of my confusion. But insanity, monstrosity programming, it manifests in an infinite amount of ways. And until the system, our white supremacy is until this system is on planet Earth, until it's replaced, we're gonna keep having to deal with people who don't have an opportunity to come out of their insane programming. People who are really bloodthirsty, for lack of a better word, because I myself was quite bloodthirsty because that's how I was trained, and just one example. I could go on forever about my programming, but I'll leave it there. See if anyone have comments.
Oh, one thing I would add is in regards to what you were saying about the truth. That is in the word guide, page 392, and then two other terms that I think that would go with truth are true colors and truthful person. True colors, avoid using this term when others use the term. Ask them to explain in detail exactly what they mean. Questions: what is meant when a person is said to have shown his or her true colors? What exactly is the color of a person that is so-called true? What exactly is the color of a person that is so-called false? And then truthful person. Use this term to apply to a person who has never knowingly, willingly, and or deliberately said anything that was not true. And that's on page 392. And then what you said about monsters is on pages 242 and 243 of the word guide. And it's monster and or monstrosity behavior. And it's very detailed because it takes up pretty much like a whole page just in regards to that term.
Thank you, Mr. Dan.
So the truth. I noticed that there are a lot of people who will refer to something as their truth. They say, my truth. My truth is this, my truth is that. I had a discussion with my daughter recently about that, where she was talking about some of her friends, and their truth. It was a specific discussion, but I don't want to get into the specifics right now. And I had to explain to her that, there's no such thing as that. Truth is truth. I mean, you don't get to say something is your truth based on how you feel about something, what you think about something. The truth is truth. And there are a lot of words that the racist suspects will confuse with the word truth. I think the gentleman that just spoke even talked about a couple of them, true colors, a truthful person, the word honesty. People use the word honesty and the word truth interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. They don't mean the same thing. But people try to make them mean the same thing, whereas honesty is an expression of how you feel, which may or may not have anything to do with truth. And they will use other words interchangeably with the word truth. Let's see if I can come up with another one real quick. I know when I'm going to come up with it right after I stop talking. So, okay, the word fact. They use the word fact interchangeably with the word truth. And we'll have people thinking that just because something is a fact, that means that that is truth. And that's just not true. A fact is basically anything that can be proven or disproven. That's all it is. It may or may not have anything to do with truth. So there are a lot of things, a lot of words that people use interchangeably with truth. And unfortunately, this clouds their vision of what truth actually is. So they'll begin to think that something is true just because they think it's true, or just because they feel it's true. So don't get caught up in that, basically, is what I'm saying. Examine all the words Examine what you think, examine what you feel, and examine what is true.
Well said, Mr. Williams. Because it's very important to do those things because words, in particular, is a huge component as to how this system is maintained and refined, how words are used. Um, if anyone doesn't have any insight to share on their individualized monstrosity training programming, I like to. I found a passage from earlier from 184, um, which is also a good substitute for a so-called apology. Um, so it says, question: what is the correct thing to say after you say something that you should not have said because you were tired, sleepy, hungry, confused, weak, sick, in pain, misinformed, uniformed, etc.? Well, my bad, uninformed. Answer: say I said some things that I should not have said because I was under the force and influence of the system of white supremacy. Explanation: during the existence of white supremacy, as a victim of white supremacy, non white person, you are at all times doing and saying something that you should not do and or say. Um, really, really appreciated this part. I'm definitely gonna try to practice that more if I happen to uh, step out of code in my interactions with people. I'm just gonna say either I made an error or say I said some things that I shouldn't have said because I was under the force, domination, influence of white supremacy. Perhaps you can help to eliminate white supremacy so these things can stop happening. Um, ways to refine code and practice code. But and also another important aspect to understand is from 183 because just self-hate and hate in general is a huge it's very prevalent amongst non-white people, especially black people. I remember my first time interacting with a black person who hated being black was on MySpace. There's this black chick who she told me she hated being black. Her MySpace was full of like how much she hated black people and how much black people are how get black people are ghetto and like just not constructive good people. And I tried to I didn't know anything about white supremacy or racism, so I couldn't help her at all. I just talked to her. But this part right here from 183 allows me to understand that situation a lot better, and also all the just the current situation of the planet involving non-white people, especially black people. And the question is from 183 says, question: what can you do to stop non-white people from hating themselves and each other? Answer: as long as white supremacy exists, there's nothing that anyone can do that will stop non-white people from hating themselves and each other. As long as white supremacy exists, non-white people can only attempt to minimize conflict by avoiding all contact with each other, except for purposes of helping each other to accomplish specific deeds that serve constructive purposes. These specific deeds must include speaking and or acting according to a counter racist code that is specifically designed to help produce the end of white supremacy racism and help replace it with justice, balance between people. So it's not about stopping non-white people from hating each other. And although that would be nice, the goal is producing justice and being constructive. And once justice is on planet Earth, there shouldn't be any more scenarios where non-white people or white people are killing one another. So I see Ms. Williams had a hand raised.
Yes, I do. On page 185, this is something that really stood out to me. It says, make a habit of answering all questions slowly, truthfully, and in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. When criticized for so-called taking too much time to answer a question correctly or constructively, respond by saying, in order to answer your question correctly, I must think. Explanation, questions that are answered without thought and care for correctness produces incorrect answers. A so-called answer to a question that is not correct, it is not the answer to the question. So it made me think about, I have a tendency to talk very fast. A lot of people assume I'm from Louisiana because of the way I talk, but I'm a native Texan. But I'm learning to speak slower, right? And gather my thoughts is helping me to be more constructive in making conversations more understandable. And I'm realizing that in the system of racism, white supremacy, one of the things they don't want us to do is to think. We've usually we have these triggers. If somebody asks us a question, we just like, we don't even really think through what the question is. We've already said something. And sometimes a person may say, well, that's what I was just saying. But we're so triggered that we want to come back with an attack or something, even though we may have misunderstood what the person has said. So for me, that's a habit I'm working on, to learn to speak slower, to think more constructively before I answer a question. And if it's taking too long, now I know what to say. That's all.
And well, that's something I'm also practicing more. Just taking time to think, not just about like answering questions, but just about everything I'm attempting to do. Um, because you're correct. Non-white people have been definitely obliterated in terms of our ability to think, ability to give each other time to think, and yeah, we're gonna dive into just our non-white people's inability to like receive criticism, praise, or denunciation without conflict, because we just have been so retarded by this by white people who practice white supremacy. Like the people who to blame for all for all this stuff we're talking about. I just want to remind everyone that the black non-white people are not to blame. Um, Black people especially are not to blame. I'm gonna read number 5 again from 186. Like, many people have been harmed who should not have been harmed. Many people are to blame. The people who are most to blame are hiding in plain sight. The people who are most to blame are all racist white supremacists. And only white people can be white supremacists. So I'm definitely blame white people for this nonsense that we were all born into and forced to forced to counter and replace with a better system, preferably justice, guaranteeing no one is allowed to be mistreated, creatures included, and guaranteeing that people who need help, animals included, get the help they need. It's could all be so simple, but white people have convinced us that war, poverty, and all this chaos we see is just normal when it's not normal. It's just high functioning, highly refined insanity and justice. So, and I'm reminded of what you said, Ms. Williams, by again the destruction of Black civilization, when Chancellor William poses that question, how were Black people able to build those great civilizations? How were they able to build all those pyramids? Answer is simple. They had time to think. They were not yet being constantly attacked by white supremacy. So thinking is a powerful, powerful tool. If non-white people reclaimed this tool, got it out of their rusty toolbox, we'd be able to, do more constructive damage to the system of white supremacy in order to produce justice. Um, Anyone have any notes they'd like to share? As I notes, passages they read, anything of like to share? I'll just remind everyone, the term great spectator, great spectators is not a place for that behavior, but continuing. I want to read from okay, so another important part from the code, really important question. 187 question: what is the correct thing to say when asked if racism, white supremacy is individual or institutional? Um, it says, answer, say racism is both individual and institutional. Racism is institutionalized in everything that is said and done or not said and done by every individual white person who participates in or who does not effectively oppose the practice of racism, white supremacy. It's really important concept, piece of code to remember, because that even that white woman and her white children and the white father she's with, even those people are an important factor into how this system is being maintained. It's not just the people in suits that we don't see who are in the conference meetings planning where they're gonna gentrify next or how they're gonna keep Flint from having clean water. It's the average white person who is also guilty of practicing racism and not producing justice, because a lot of white people get away from being racist suspects because some non-white people may believe that we're only dealing with institutionalized racism and not racism that comes from every aspect of living, and that includes the racist child, a racist woman. Even if this white person is a so-called coach who so-called helps Black people, um, every white person is a racist suspect until justice is on planet Earth. And if this logic was somehow communicated, implanted in non-white people's brain computer, we would have a lot less people trying to be friends with white people and more people understanding that there's no point in attempting to be friends with white people. The only thing we should be really trying to do here is produce justice, so we can spend our time doing something else besides trying to replace the system of justice. And yeah, I really appreciated that part of the code, because even when I was in college, while talking to racist professors, I was the only non-white person to ever say racism in the classroom, but even I was still saying like institutional racism, ignorant to the fact that these two white teachers, and one male, one female, were also white supremacists. So it just goes to show how refined the system is and how confusion can prevent us from understanding who is to blame and how this system is being operated, which is being operated by every white person on planet Earth, children included. Um,
You know how it says that we should always try to be honest with ourselves and others to, respect ourselves. Um, what about the sense of, how they said the question is it correct to say that non-white people say many things that are not true? Yes, in order to survive within the system of white supremacy, racism, with field problems, it is absolutely necessary to say many things that are not true within the system of white supremacy. Non-white people are forced by the white supremacists to say many things that are not true, both to and about themselves, and both to and about white people. When the truth is told, it is allowed to be told and expected to be told mostly in a manner that has the effect of being amusing, confusing, mildly interesting, and or supportive of insane thought, speech, and or action. So how do we stay continuing to respect ourselves if the system refines us not being truthful from time to time to time? Do we just be truthful to all non-white people as opposed to the white racist man, racist woman?
See, so this is why the definition is very specific about the self-respect one, about not lying to yourself is very important. Under the conditions of racism, white supremacy, you may have to lie to somebody else. I mean, that's the nature of the system itself. It's built on lies. So in your day-to-day activities, you have to be aware that you may be in a situation or two or 500, where you actually have to say things that are not true, just in order to survive. But the idea is that you don't lie to yourself about that. You tell yourself the truth. You have to tell yourself that, hey, I'll know if I don't say this, if I don't lie, I might be out of a job. But I'm not going to lie to myself. I know that, what actually happened. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. A lot of people will feel bad about that. But you shouldn't feel bad about that because you didn't build this system. You were born into it. And in many cases, it's a delicate balancing act. So the idea is just never lie to yourself.
And I would add.
Sorry, 05, can I speak really quick? Yes, Mr. Williams, Edward, that was very profound. I think that what you said is something that, I have been encountering on this journey myself, especially the part about not blaming myself. I think it is very important to always be truthful with yourself about the things because it is going to be very hard to not partake in so many white supremacy activities and things like that, living in this system. So, at one point I was even struggling myself. I couldn't figure out how to operate, how to, operate knowing what I know now. And that was very difficult for me, but on the journey of finding my own code, I think that what you just stated is very, very profound. It's something that I think a lot of counter racists can use on their journey also. I think it's very, going back to Carice's question, I think, just being able to identify these things now, being able to know understand that what you're partaking in, right? Before myself, I became less confused. I would have just done those things, just off of my own discretion, I guess you can say, just because I wanted to, have, and there was no, my brain computer just could never make it click, So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that is very profound. Thank you for that, Mr. Williams,
No, no.
Edward Williams. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I was working with someone who was redoing my resume for me. This was years ago, right? And the lady put a lot of things on there that were not true. And I would tell her, I'd say, hey, look, this is not true. So, you're going to have to, remove it. And I said that about several things. And she looked at me and said, look, do you want this job or not? See, I mean, you have to make those kind of decisions under this system. I mean, and it gets a whole lot worse than that. The key is, if you're in a situation where you have to lie, don't lie to yourself, and don't you start believing those lies that you tell it. Once you start doing that, you're sinking your own boat.
Yeah, I would add that, and especially in the workplace, that do not do anything that may jeopardize your ability to financially sustain yourself. But this is why perhaps the code can also come in handy, because it teaches us how to exist in the workplace by we could avoid telling a lot of lies in the workplace, especially if we are not doing that much talking and just trying to focus on our job. You won't have to lie if you're not engaging in non-constructive conversations. And yeah, that's what I would say to that. But in terms of like not in the workplace, there should be very little reason one should be compelled to not want to tell the truth. Truth, I hate not to be cliche, but they say the truth shall set you free, and perhaps that is because if all non-white people on the planet really understood truth and used it to produce justice, we could be free of this vile system called white supremacy that we were born into.
Oh, I'd like to add something. I had mentioned this point in the last session. This is from the 1984 edition, kind of like in regards to the thing about lying to white people. This is on page 118 of the 1984 edition. Do not assume that you can keep a secret from white supremacist racists. And then I gave the reason explanation last time, but I will point out on there. It is not likely that a victim of white supremacy, non-white person, can prevent the white supremacist from knowing anything that they want to know. So when you get involved in like counter racism and stuff, like they're gonna know who you are. Like from the moment you decide to order a book, they probably put you on some sort of database. Say this victim, they bought the code book. Just keep an eye on that one. We got cameras and mics on practically all technology now, so they're going to know about it. So even if you're a great spectator and you just want to like the video and not come in and say anything, hey, that's going to put you on a list too. So you can't keep secrets from them underneath this system, and thinking that you can remain anonymous, you'd be lying to yourself.
Agreed, and well said. Only secrets are the ones in your mind that you don't tell anyone. For now, I suspect racist man and racist woman are trying to get into our minds as well with their technology. So that's what I have to say in regards to that. Bum bum bum. I like to comment on just another piece of the code which I think could be very useful, and everyone remaining focused on producing justice, remaining focused on the ultimate goal, which is, I hope everyone here, ultimate goal is to produce justice. Um, and it's the importance of how to keep that focus, and I think that could be done by with the help of the entire code book. But this passage I'm going to read can give insight on how to do that. And it says from 189, while trying to help non-white people do the constructive things that need doing, do not praise them and do not denounce them. Explanation: there's reason to believe that many non-white people, while subject to the system of white supremacy, in a way do not react in a constructive manner to praise, to denunciation, and or to most criticism. Many non-white people have such weak thoughts of their self-worth that they cannot receive praise, denunciation, or criticism and put it to use in a manner that is constructive. Therefore, it is best and correct, according to compensatory counter racist logic, not to comment on what non white people do or say, but instead try to do or say those things that are constructively effective in replacing white supremacy racism with justice, balance between people. Avoid all non essential remarks about what other non white people are doing or not doing in regards to opposing or supporting the system of white supremacy. Question: who should be regarded as a hero or heroine? Answer: nobody. Explanation: in a known universe, either people do what they should do or they do not. Most of the time, they do not. When they do what they should do, it only means that they are doing what they should have been doing all along. So really, I love this piece of the code because, you know, I should have started this trying to produce justice a long time ago. But I was doing destructive things with my time and energy. And in my attempts to get victims in my survival unit to get on code or attempt to produce justice or to do anything constructive for that part, I have utterly failed miserably. Um, and it's because of what's been done to us by white people, racist man, racist woman. We have been made just such unfortunate beings, and this piece of the code allows me to not waste any more time on my victim unit besides giving them help that I can give them when they ask for the help. But as for like denouncing their ghetto glorification, as for like even trying to have a conversation with them in regards to their ghetto glorification, which is supporting white supremacy. Actually, I'll read that definition um hopefully before the meeting's over. But yeah, I think this part of the code is going to help me particular because I have wasted and still do waste all the time on my victim unit. Um, but now just understanding the system, understanding like just the deep levels of damage psychologically, mentally, spiritually that has been done to black people, and on top of that reality, my victim unit resides in South Central or other areas known as hoods. So they just may be they just may be I don't want to say unsavable because I can't save anybody, even if they wanted to be on code, I wouldn't be saving them. But they just can't get out of their patterns of ghetto glorification, the patterns of low frequency behavior, I could also call it. And it's not their fault, it's white people's fault. But it is their fault for not wanting to do anything about it. I could say that for sure. Um, and also like this whole hero and heroine part of the code. I think that is can be equated to like what Cree said earlier, how like we're trained to want to live in like a fantasy world. Like black females are looking for like a knight in shiny armor to come and save them, looking for a husband, you know, and some black males are perhaps looking for a queen to come and save them from their depression, their misery. But you know, no one is gonna save us. It's our duty, our assignment to be remain united, independent, to produce justice on planet Earth, so we all can live in peace. And I believe it's very simple. It just requires a large number of non-white people to get on board.
Oh, I have something I'd like to add in regards to what you had just said. On page 185, at the bottom, it says, always tell the truth about what your ultimate goal is. Do not pretend that your ultimate goal is to replace white supremacy with justice when in truth, your ultimate goal is something else. Some examples of ultimate goals are as follows: getting married, attracting attention to yourself, traveling and meeting interesting people, finding personal love, having fun, showing off knowledge or possessions, killing people and or mistreating them, accumulating money, and engaging in sexual intercourse with all of the people of one's choice. As long as the system's around, you're not going to have any of those things the way they ought to be.
Well said. And before I was on code, I had no life purpose. I was just going through the motions. So I think Dr. Francis Boasting for showing me that me as a black person, I have a cosmic responsibility to want a better world for myself and for all black and non-white people. So yeah, our cosmic responsibility, our ultimate goal should be replaced by supremacy. Um, yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Mr. Dan. Reading that. Mm, two. Bump, bump. Oh, also,
What?
someone was gonna say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sorry, I'm outside right now, but one of the things that stood out to me in this section as well was the whole thing about the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think that is very important too. Because as a kid, like, always like, why am I in this? Or what is this? You know, and we're almost forced to, especially if you go to like elementary school, do the school. You almost do it every day until about high school. If I'm not mistaken, I think I did it in high school as well, and it was almost like a requirement. They tell you to stand up. If you decide not to do the Pledge of Allegiance, then there is some
And
repercussions. You do get
you keep cutting out,
like
so I
stop that
can
thing.
hear you. So
Can you hear me?
you cut in and out for the majority of what we were saying, so I'm sure a lot of it was lost in translation. I may be the only one who.
Oh man, I was saying.
Yeah, perhaps it's best if you wait until you're in a place with Wi-Fi. Um, but I do like that you brought up that aspect. I did hear you bringing up the portions about in relation to the flag. Um, I remember someone calling again and thanking Mr. Lily Fuller for this piece of the code because it makes a lot of sense. I can recall being forced to put my right hand over my heart and say I pledge the allegiance to this flag, which has historically hung, raped, killed people who look like me. So that kind of violence being happening in elementary school involving the Pledge of Allegiance and flags is very detrimental to the black mind. I believe, and perhaps that is why it's not heavily required these days, but I could be incorrect. There could be southern states that still practice this conditioning of the mind and having to pledge allegiance to the flag. And I do like this remark that can be said into where it says 194. So when asked to say something about your relationship to or with a flag, say, I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. So I understand this as if the flag, like, well, if the people who control what this flag means treat me with no respect, want to destroy me, want me to be a prisoner of war forever, then I don't. At the same time, I don't have any respect, care for this what this flag or what it represents because it represents my destruction. Um, at least this is what logic is telling me, and I wish I had this part of the code elementary, so I could tell my teachers that I'm not gonna do any of this. I owe my allegiance to the production of justice, not the United States, not the concept called the United States, not the concept called America. I owe my allegiance to the production of justice, you know. But I currently pay my allegiance to the system of white supremacy because I was born into the system of white supremacy, and currently that is the only system on the planet. So 194 is definitely full of gems. Definitely. Now, yeah, if you're back in Wi-Fi, please you can comment, but I understand that you may not be, so no worries. Um,
I'd like to comment or talk. On page 183, I'm sure you guys have brought it up, but I wanted to get my thoughts out on it. On where he says, what can you do to stop non-white people from hating themselves and each other? And the answer, as long as white supremacy exists, there's nothing that anyone can do that will stop non-white people from hating themselves and each other. Before I knew about code, for a very long time, I saw people, consciously engaging in activities that were destructive, like binging alcohol, smoking tons of drugs all day, not really working out or eating healthy. I always knew that those were, very destructive behaviors, and seeing that we were all, and at least somewhat informed that those are destructive behaviors, how people would continue to partake in it. I always used to come to the conclusion, oh, that person hates themselves. So, and in turn, I would try to encourage that person to, actually care about themselves. That's at least how I would put it. To care about themselves, take care of yourself, exercise a little bit more, stop eating all that garbage all that poison. And I came to find out that people aren't really interested in that kind of stuff. People would rather continue doing that because it's what feels good to them. So I always, became frustrated with people, my former associates, because they just didn't seem to care. And it seemed like for a while that I cared about them more than they cared about themselves. Well, I guess wanting them to do better and whatnot. But after reading this section and understanding how white supremacy or racism works, and that there's nothing that I can do to help them, stop hating themselves. There's nothing that I can do to get people to stop practicing self-hate and to practice deep self-respect. I think that's all most of it's a personal choice, and realizing how the system works. So unconsciously, I would go in and try to minimize contact with these people because I found myself getting frustrated and, end up using a lot more time and energy than was necessary. So I felt like that section in particular was very it definitely meant a lot and opened my eyes. That was one of the things I wanted to share. Anybody have comments?
Thank you.
There's actually another thing. You read it earlier, and I felt like this came into kind of what's going on with the protests with the people who classify themselves as Asian, how they're protesting for justice. And unfortunately, because of my training and how I blame my training, and I'm practicing this daily, but I seem to feel somewhat like frustrated and almost kind of like, well, what did you expect? Kind of, those very toxic behaviors, where on page 186, and what are some of the best and correct things to say when something happens that should not happen, that involves white people with non-white people during the existence of white supremacy racism. So I see a lot of signs going up about stop practicing hate against Asians, and I just kind of, I don't know what the correct word is. Like, it's just like I kind of get angry or upset. Like, first of all, why aren't you saying that about all people? Why is it only specific about, specific to Asian people? Why is it now that all of a sudden it seems like you guys care about justice? And I understand, I've been trying to practice this because I understand how the system of racism, white supremacy works. I should not be blaming those communities on their reaction to racism. I should be blaming the white supremacists. But this section in particular, I've found it to be very helpful as I, retrain myself that, these things are to be expected under the system of racism, white supremacy, and we should be blaming the white supremacists at all times. Felt like I had to say that because I've seen a lot of it, and just those communities at times can practice a lot of anti-Blackness. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Oh, and another thing to do with on the subject of love. So this one was pretty good. I often catch myself saying I love people all the time. I say that to people in my survival unit. I say it to people to sometimes some of my fellow counter racists. I use that word, I believe, more often than I should, but I can't help it. I was talking to one of my cousins, and I was telling her, yeah, I love my cousin. And she's like, why? And, I honestly, I was caught off guard by that because I don't think anybody has ever asked me that, like, why? And, I gave the usual, well, I care about her. She's done some good things for me, and yeah, so therefore I love her. But given the definition or the answer, where it says it is incorrect to say that you love non-white people or that you love white people. It is incorrect to say that you love any people. Do not try to find reasons to say that you love people. Do not confuse, I'm on page 188, by the way. Do not try to find reasons to say that you love people. Do not confuse wants, desires, needs, and fascinations with love. Instead, try to establish a condition that will produce white people and non-white people who love themselves and each other, without saying that they do and without thinking that they could do anything other than love themselves and each other by practicing justice and correctness. So I highlighted that last part where it says, instead try to establish a condition. And I really got to thinking about that and how, it's like creating in the system of justice, you wouldn't even have to tell anybody that you love them, because that's what is expected, and that's what everyone's always thinking. When you have to tell somebody that you love them, it's almost like, what were you doing the other half of the time? You like hating them? What are you doing? So it's like under the system of racism, white supremacy, we have to keep reminding each other that we love
that we love each other, to make ourselves, I guess, feel comfortable under this system, or that somebody actually cares for them, or is that or attempting to care about them. So this was definitely very codified. I gotta get more on code, but it's gonna be tough because I don't know how you would describe feelings for people who are trying to love.
Yeah, thank you for that, Quaku. Just to add to that from 188 as well. I'm gonna read these two paragraphs that I think will give just just adds to it constructively. So it says explanation. Racist men and racist women, white supremacists collectively operate the system of white supremacy racism in such a manner that people who are classified as non-white are not permitted to express love for each other while subject to white supremacy. The non-white people of the known universe are only permitted to show some limited affection or concern for each other. The system of white supremacy functions in such a manner that people are enticed or allowed to express romance, fake love. Non-white people in particular are prevented from loving one another as well as loving themselves as individuals. They are also not allowed to functionally know or understand what love is. According to compensatory logic, love and justice are one and the same. So, very important things to think about in terms of how we use words and what words we choose to use. Um, yeah, I see my victim unit use this word love my entire life while at the same time getting drunk and cursing each other out, trying to kick each other out of their homes. So my brain computer picked up a long time ago that I don't know what love is, but I will say it to you if it will make you just stop talking to me, or I rarely say I love you first to my family members because I don't know what that feeling of love is. My entire life I have never really understood what like love feels like, besides it being a deep affection for a thing or person, or a deep appreciation for a thing or person. Other than that, I've have definitely been cautious about using that word because I know I didn't live in a loving environment growing up at all. So and to see my family use it, so my victim units use it so much is actually quite pitiful. Um, if I but I don't need to go into that right now. Um, yeah, thanks for bringing up that topic up. Kwaku definitely is a hard aspect of the code to practice due to this fantasy insanity world we live in.
And I would add page 211 of the word guide, love, use that word with caution.
Agreed. Bum.
Does anybody have the definition of the word love that's in the 1984 version of the code book? If so, could you read that, please?
Dan, I believe you're the only person with that version.
Give me just a moment.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, I found it. Page 277 of the 1984 edition. Love, speech and or action that results in the use of truth in a manner that promotes the practice of justice and correctness at all times, in all places, in all areas of activity, including economics, education, and entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Page 277.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Um, another aspect about the code that I think is also great. From 190, it states, should a person take pride in being non-white? And keep in mind, I'm trying to just keep in mind, like, the code is intended for individuals to take parts and pieces from. One does not have to practice every piece of code. Everything in here is a suggestion. So it's a question. It says, should a person take pride in being non-white? Answer, no. A person should not take pride in being anything. What a person should do is seek to know the truth, that which is, seek to use truth in such a manner as to produce justice, balance between people, and correctness, balance between all creatures, including all people and their interactions with all things. Note, the aforementioned is all that needs doing by any person in any place at any time. Learn from all people, both white and non-white, everything that you can that is of constructive value. Do not, however, praise any person in the known universe as being an example of what a person should be. So I like that piece of the code. And like, I'm not gonna I have a perhaps pride in practicing deep self-respect. It's two entirely different things. But I'm not gonna say I don't appreciate my melanin. I do appreciate my melanin, and I appreciate that I am a black person. So I don't know if that's being prideful, but yeah, I'm using my melanin to help to produce truth. I mean, produce justice and use truth in order to produce justice. And yeah, I just thought that that part to the code is really interesting. Very interesting. So the code mentions the reality that there's only one government, the government of white supremacy. There's only one nation, the white nation, ran by a racist man and racist woman. And this is all on 193. And the code also mentions that there's no such thing as a African or Africa or America or Americans. These things are only concepts because these things have yet to be established. Like according to compensatory counter racist logic, an African and an American are people who have produced justice on planet Earth. America is a place where justice and correctness exist on planet Earth, but in 2021, these things don't exist. So therefore, these countries, these places are only concepts, and I really like that because it can help with a lot of confusion of thinking like this country is better or that country is worse. No, it's all kind of garbage. No, it all is garbage due to it all being dominated by white supremacy. And I like um, this part of the code as well because I've discovered that I'm a patriot. I am very 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 patriotic because I believe in producing justice right now, immediately, ASAP. And let me just find that part where the code mentions patriotism. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see, I actually wrote my notes somewhere. 193. I'm not able to find it right now. But if I do, I will read that portion. But all in all, the code states that a patriot is simply a person who is attempting, wanting to produce justice on planet Earth, not wanting to mistreat anyone, not wanting the allowment of anyone to be mistreated. So, if one would like to be patriotic, it's not so-called loving your country or so-called, celebrating your flag. It's actually wanting to produce justice and correctness and balance amongst people. And I'm sure everyone here is quite patriotic, or else you wouldn't be using your time and energy for such activities like this. Um, bup, bup, bup.
Patriots in the word guide too, page 284.
Okay, I'll just read it from I'll just find it and read it from there. So I can just perhaps you said 284.
Correct.
All right, so I'm just gonna read the definition from the word guide, so we all can understand how patriotic we are. So, patriotism. Use these words to apply mostly to yourself and to others at any time that you or those others are speaking and or acting with the intention of replacing white supremacy racism with justice, balance between people. When others use the words patriot and or patriotism, ask for a detailed explanation that you can easily understand. When talking with others about patriots and or patriotism, while doing what you can to replace white supremacy with justice, always make the statement, I know of no person more patriotic than myself. Notes, during the existence of white supremacy, racism, and according to compensatory counter racist logic, there is no greater patriotism than trying. There's no greater patriotism than the patriotism of trying to replace white supremacy, racism with justice, balance between people. This is true and logical because there is no way for justice, balance between people to exist and white supremacy racism to exist in the same universe at the same time. Therefore, the person who is speaking and or acting to replace white supremacy with justice is doing the most patriotic thing that a person can do. What is patriotic to a person who is trying to end white supremacy racism? Well, let me read this again. What is patriotic to a person who is trying to end white supremacy racism is always subversive to a white supremacist racist. It is not possible for a white supremacist racist to function as a patriot. A white supremacist racist is a master subverter of the production of justice. A compensatory suggestion for usage. One, patriotism, speaking and acting to guarantee that no person is mistreated at any time, in any place, in any area of activity, and speaking and acting to guarantee that the person in need of the most constructive help gets the most constructive help. Two, patriot, any person who has guaranteed that no person is being mistreated and who has also guaranteed that the person in need of the most constructive help receive the most constructive help. So really, really great definition, really, really great compensatory counter racist definition. And I think it's quite hilarious and ironic that white people who love to wave their flags and wear their hats and shout up and down how they're so patriotic can't even be patriotic because their position on planet Earth currently is a master subverters. They are the master subverters. The only really thing preventing us from producing justice is them and what they have done to us, what they have done to non-white people. So I think it's really great. Again, it's from 294 of the Word Guide. Ms. Williams, I see you have a hand raised. Or is that an old hand raised?
No, maybe she's not at the phone right
No,
now.
I'm sorry. I was
Oh, there
in
she
the
is.
chat.
Okay.
I was in the chat. My hand had been up so long, I thought I'd go in the chat.
Okay, I'm going back on mute.
Okay, what I wanted to mention was on page 188 that stood out to me. At the very bottom, it says, question, if it is not correct to praise people or to brag about their accomplishment, what is correct? What is the correct thing to do? Answer, use words that inform a person of his or her constructive activities in regard to the effect. Say to the person, your work has a constructive effect. I hope you can and will continue. Avoid saying anything else. When talking about giving praise to people, say the following: the people of the known universe who are worthy of praise are not are yet to be produced. Explanation: since none of the people in the known universe have ended white supremacy and replaced it with justice, none have proven that they are worthy of praise. Instead of praising a person, it is best and correct to help the person to better think, speak, and act to end white supremacy and to replace white supremacy with justice, balance between people. So I hadn't got that definition of patriotic from the Word Guide, but that's exactly how I feel. Because to me, there's nothing more important than producing justice, a balance between people, guaranteeing that no one is mistreated, guaranteeing that anyone who needs help gets the most constructive help. There's nothing more important to me than that. So to that sense, I am very patriotic, very, very, very much so. So thanks so much for giving me that new word to understand their definition versus our definition from the Word Guide and what patriotic really means. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's extremely important. It's all based on the definition of justice. You know, if you had a different definition of justice, then being a patriot would mean something different. It all comes down to the definition. The definition of a word is the equivalent to a steering wheel in an automobile. I mean, that definition is going to take you where you need to go when you use the word. So yeah, they have a different definition of justice. They have a different definition of patriot. They have a different definition for morality. They have a different definition for a whole lot of things. And all of those definitions of the words that the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, use are used to support the system of racism, white supremacy. It's real simple.
That simple. But this will be my final note and comment to share before closing comments. And I just thought is just something that could benefit non-white people from hearing, and also great piece of advice to keep in our brain computers. And as even once we have justice on planet Earth, this is still something to practice And from 191, the code states, question, what is one of the most important things to remember when you are seriously criticized, rebuked, or mocked as you try to accomplish something of constructive value? Answer, do not be discouraged. Re examine what you are doing and why you are doing it. If you believe that you are correct in what you are doing, continue to do it. Be persistent, be persistent, be persistent. So I just this advice really helps me to keep doing all the things that I'm doing and attempting to do. Um if if I had been discouraged early in my attempted counter racist journey, um I would have missed out on a lot of knowledge from folks in this group. Had I have been discouraged from seeing non-white people's inability to take this information constructively, if I had been discouraged from seeing non-white people's inability to take Dr. Francis Bosing's information constructively, I would have missed out on developing and learning many of the skills I am currently learning now due to continuing on my path. So it's really important to be persistent, be persistent, be persistent, especially if you know what you are trying to do is of constructive value. And even more, especially if you think that what you're attempting to do will help to produce justice on planet Earth. Mm. And, and if anyone has any more notes they'd like to share, if not, we can get into closing comments. Particularly the folks who have not spoken much this meeting. Alrighty, so closing comments it is, it seems. Area 6, people relations, politics, very, very important to tell the truth, exist in truth. Um, share your share truth with non-white people, share constructive information with non-white people. Um, my closing comment, I will add to it by reading the term ghetto glorification because whenever I see my victim unit on Facebook, is all I'm reminded of is ghetto glorification. So 132 from the word guide, ghetto glorification states, ghetto glorification, use this term to apply to any behavior by one or more non-white person that helps to produce, promote, and or praise speech or action that is primitive, savage, silly, stupid, and or in other ways destructive that directly or indirectly support white supremacy racism. Examples, non-white people speaking and or acting in support of one or in one or more of the following: being discourteous, fighting for purposes other than self-defense, necessary defense of other and or necessary defense of major constructive possessions slash properties, killing for purposes other than self-defense, necessary defense of others, necessary defense of major constructive possessions, property, and or the enactment of maximum emergency compensatory action, name calling, promoting the destructive use of sound, producing noise, robbing and stealing, showing contempt for non-white females, showing off the ability to belittle non-white people based on what they have or have not acquired because of what the white supremacist races have allowed them to acquire, showing off the ability to belittle non-white people because non-white people are not white people, planning newer styles of doing harm to non-white people, singing songs and or using slang terms that glorify non-white people doing harm to other non-white people. That is the definition of ghetto glorification. I am certain if all non-white people did not participate in ghetto glorification, we could solve this problem perhaps overnight. And that's my closing comment.
And then just to follow up with that and to close off, can everyone hear me okay?
Excellently.
Perfect, thank you. One of the things that I'm thinking about as I'm wrapping my thoughts up is that just continuing to really think about my responses to things, and mainly in white spaces. And I think sometimes I'm either, especially when it comes to like being at work or in school or anywhere where there's a lot of white people, it's almost like I have to talk a lot because I'm either the odd one out or they're looking at me for the answers because they have no idea. So I think it's just really taking a second to say nothing or say less and kind of just let the conversation unfold however it unfolds. And then with that, just being conscious and thinking about every word that is being said to me, as well as not just jumping to conclusions, because sometimes I might just hear something and I'm just like, oh, okay. And I'll respond however in those spaces, but really thinking about what they say to me, because I'm pretty sure if I really listen to the words that are being said to me in those spaces, especially at work or in like classrooms and things like that, I'm pretty sure it's going to be, I don't want to use the word disrespectful, but disrespectful, because I do have some word comments that come up. So yeah, just more practicing for me and then continue learning.
I'll go for my closing comments. It's going to be on 185, the passage that says, always tell the truth about what your ultimate goal is. Do not pretend that your ultimate goal is to replace white supremacy with justice, when in truth, your ultimate goal is something else. Some examples of ultimate goals are as follows: getting married, attracting attention to yourself, traveling and meeting interesting people, finding personal love, having fun, showing off knowledge or possessions, killing people and or mistreating them, accumulating money, engaging in sexual intercourse with all of the people of one's choice. Again, as long as the system exists, those things aren't going to be the way they ought to be. And the one point I mentioned in the 1984 edition is that you can't keep secrets from the usual suspects. And that's my Area 6 politics for this closing comments for this section.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and go next. For my closing comment, really just thinking about really putting the blame on the system of racism and white supremacy, and really understanding and drilling it in, training myself and conditioning myself to I do believe it, but to really believe that everything that is happening and going on in the world is because of the system of racism and white supremacy. Especially given how we as non-white people have been trained, taught, led, and or forced to behave in the manner of monsters and monstrosities. So very, very much understanding that and what it takes and what is necessary to produce justice on the planet. That's it for my closing comment.
My closing comment is, in order to produce justice, the self-respect we have to give ourselves and to others is to always be truthful, to be honest with ourselves is a start, as to be honest with others. And once non-white people start to be honest with themselves, and we can start to think and thinking will give us the ideas we want to see as a world of justice and a world of peace. But until that happens, it's always going to be unconstructive things going on. But we'll see in the future.
My closing comments, I believe that it's very informative. And also, I wanted to add something about the part where I was reading about not to be jealous of anyone. I think the jealousy is, from what I was, how do you say it, how it correlates to how I feel that producing justice and jealousy just do not mix. When I was younger, I found myself being a little bit jealous of really petty things that they kind of program me to be jealous of, such as maybe someone being a little bit more attractive than me or a little bit smaller than me. All things that weren't really important in the grand scheme of things. And if we want to survive, I think it's very important that we're not taken over by whatever jealousy we feel or what we think other people have that we don't, because I feel that that's how they market to us to control us, ultimately take our money. And the things own us, we don't own the things, because when we become jealous like them, we have this desire to own things. And that's, you can't produce justice and have a materialistic desire, and it also goes hand in hand with a lot of that desire for love. All these things, the fairy tale fantasy thing, the American dream that they put in front of your face. People are getting killed out there. People are having really serious issues. This is real life. This isn't about the American dream. If people are in the American dream, I believe that they are practicing white supremacy. So I feel that that's a very important point that a lot of people miss, is not to be jealous, because the programming that we watch kind of leans us in that direction where we find ourselves comparing each other, even when we're not trying to, because that's how the school system scripts us. So I believe that it's very important to have all your senses there, to be available. Don't engage in toxic behavior, either physically or mentally, and to continue to produce justice with this new knowledge.
I had thank you, Sandra. I had one note that I forgot to comment on. I'll do that now. So we understand. I understand how to describe non-white people collectively, which is silly, pitiful, and sometimes, if not all the time, stupid. And that is because of what we do with our time and energy. If we're not trying to produce justice, then we're probably using our time stupidly, silly, or pitifully. But we shouldn't use these words to describe individual non-white people. The code says on 195, on being a victim, it states, when asked to make a general comment about another non-white person, say the following: to the best of my understanding, the person that you ask about is a victim of white supremacy racism. Explanation: during the existence of white supremacy, the most important general comment that a person can make about a non-white person is that he or she is a victim of white supremacy. So on the individual level, we're all victims of white supremacy, of course. On the collective level, of course, we're all victims of white supremacy. But when describing our behavior, our general mindset, our general conditions as a collective group, it it's safe to use what the code describes it as: silly, stupid, and pitiful. And I don't feel any shame in admitting the reality or the truth. And I would hope that if non-white people are understanding that their position on planet Earth is that of being a victim and that of being conditioned and trained to be the three things I just mentioned, that I would hope that would encourage a lot of non-whites to attempt to produce justice. But then that is my last comment. Ms. Williams, would you like to share closing comments? Let me see if I can get her to closing comments.
Okay, I'm back. I was in the chat again.
I know, I was going to get you.
Forgive me, y'all. My closing comment is going to come from page 193 at the very bottom. It says, at every constructive opportunity, I always say that every person in the known universe should try to become an African, an Asian, or an American, which means to function as universal man or universal woman. Each person should at all times, number one, not mistreat anyone. Number two, not allow anyone to be mistreated. Number four, help the person who is most in need of constructive help. Number four, interact with all creatures and all things in a manner that is balanced, correct, constructive. So in my closing, I want to ask people to consider becoming more patriotic in the fight to replace racism, white supremacy with justice, a balance between people where nobody is being mistreated.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, and thanks everyone for their participation, and see everyone next week.